Good evening and welcome to Tuesday Night Talking with Turts. My name is Craig Turton, or Turts. I'm one of the proud co-founders of 100 Words Mate to Mate. We're a men's health foundation, raising awareness about men's mental health in the community. And we're just trying to get men to communicate so we can reduce the horrendous figures of men's suicide in this country. Now, this is episode 4 of Talking with Turts. In week 1, we started a campaign called #Mate to Mate at 8. Okay. Now, what we want to do, and the rules of engagement of Mate to Mate at 8 are this: at 8 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock at night on every day except Tuesday nights at 8, because you're listening to me, is we want you to contact a friend of yours. Okay. We all know someone that, with what's going on in the world at the moment, is struggling with how they're going and how they're feeling. So what we want you to do is this: ring a mate at 8 and ask them how their day is out of 10. They're the rules. Don't ring up and say, "G'day, mate, how you going?" And that's it. Not good enough. "G'day, mate, how you going? How's your day been out of 10? Or how's your week been out of 10? Now, the polls come up. So as you log in and join us tonight, please fill out the poll there and tell us how your day is going or has been out of 10. Okay, and we'll check those results later on. Now, a couple of things. Tonight is about mirroring a conversation between two mates. So this is what we want you to do. Now, I am not a doctor or a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I, in fact, am a painter. Okay? So the reason I tell you that is we are just trying to show you how a conversation we want to go between mates. Okay? So keeping that in mind. Now, if at any stage throughout the night, okay, anything that we talk about rattles your cage a bit and you feel uncomfortable or uneasy, or you need someone to talk to, ring a friend, ring a mate, or if it's really bad, ring 131114. That's 131114. That's Lifeline. Okay. Everyone, there's someone here for you at all times. Okay. Now, tonight, we've had some great guests, and tonight is no exception on Tuesday Night Talking with Turts. I got introduced to this man about 3 weeks ago by a good friend of mine called Adam Douglas. Thank you, Dougie, for this. He rang me and said, "Turts, I see what you're doing on a Tuesday night. This man is someone you need to get on your show." So I rang him. His name is Cameron Hardiman. What a guy. I caught up with him the other day. We sneakily had a little catch up at Coles Local, walking up and down the aisles, having a coffee, pretending to buy stuff. This man joined the Victorian Police Force at the age of 18 and left some 30 odd years later. He had a number of positions, from starting out as a constable into the police air wing, air ambulance, AFP. The man did it all. He's got some amazing stories. He gave me his book the other day when I saw him. I read it. It's the first book I've read from cover to cover since year 12. It had a huge effect on me. I finished the book last night at 9:13. I swear to God, I cried for the next 15 minutes. It had such an impact on me, and it's a real privilege of mine to introduce to you Mr. Cameron Hardiman. How are you, Cam? How's your day been out of 10, my dear friend?
Oh, pretty good, actually. I think it's about a 7 out of 10, I think.
Is that because you knew you were going to talk to me?
No, it was an 8 this morning. Had a good sleep in, which I always like.
Beautiful.
Wasn't too hectic with the isolation.
Yep.
Walked the dog at the park and had a nice dinner. So, and now I'm with you. So it's a 7. How are you?
No. Mate, I had a pretty good day today. I had probably an 8.5. I was down working at Safety Beach. Beautiful sunshine all day. Painted outside. So for a painter, mate, those sort of days this time of year are pretty rare. So it was a really good day for me. And mate, I'm super pumped to talk to you tonight. That's for sure.
Thanks, mate.
Now, mate, you joined the police force at the age of 18. Why did you do that?
Boy, I didn't go too well at high school, believe it or not, for someone that just wrote a book. I failed my last year, year 12. Wasn't a very good student. I didn't listen. I wanted to do my own thing. So when I finished school, I went and collected the dole, unemployment benefits. I surfed a lot, played a lot of pinball machines, drank a lot of coffee, and then woke up one day and thought I need a job. And that was about the time they had a television commercial advertising how exciting and exhilarating the police force was. So I put in and got through. I graduated not long after my 19th birthday.
Unbelievable. Mate, what were your first impressions of the police force when you first joined?
Because I was still a kid, 18 and 19, that's still a kid. I don't think you've even fully developed then. So for me, it was exciting. I mean, I still had P plates on my car when I drove to the local police station and started work. So I could actually drive the police divisional van at high speed, but on the way home, I had to wear P plates. So what kid wouldn't like that?
Exactly. Now, mate, having known a bit about you and read your book, now here is the book, and it was remiss of me not to put it up. 10 feet tall and not quite bulletproof. Mate, this is you, isn't it? This is you in the orange suit here.
It is.
That's you. Now, we will get to that later because you didn't just walk in day one and say, hey, throw me out of a helicopter.
It took a while.
You had to work your way up to that position.
Yeah.
Now, mate, before we go any further, you suffer from PTSD.
Yep.
And depression. That's the reason you had to leave the force?
Yes. Yep.
So why would someone like yourself, why would you agree to do an interview like this?
Well, for me, being diagnosed was a bit of a shock. I never knew anything was coming until I had a massive breakdown. But even when the doctors told me I had PTSD, I still didn't believe it. And it's not until you have all the symptoms come at once that you realise that, you know, maybe they're right. And I went on a huge information drive to try and find as much as I can about PTSD. And the internet is just so much full of just garbage and people that profess to be experts and start writing about this stuff. So I turned to books and I read a book that was referred to me by Major General John Cantwell, who was, I think at that rank, is third in charge in the army. And he had PTSD and worked his whole 30-year army career with it.
Wow. And
after reading that, I thought I had deja vu moments every 15 minutes reading that book. And that's where I got most of my information from. And not only that, that's where I realised that there's light at the end of the tunnel, that you can actually get through it and get over it and work your way around it and live with it. So I thought, well, if I publish what I've written, someone else might be in that same position, then they've got two books to look for, mine and John Cantwell's, and that'll give them the information they need.
So, you know, as I said, you started at 18 and, you know, it's not as if, you know, you got halfway through your career, you know, as I said, over 30 years and suddenly had it. That came right at the end. So there was obviously a lot of stuff as a constable that you saw early days. And one of the chapters in the book was the job you went out to at Airport West as a constable at the age of 21. Now, I read that and I thought, I know what I was doing at 21 and it wasn't what you did on that day out at Airport West. Can you just quickly run us through that?
Airport West, that was a suicide. An elderly gentleman decided to commit suicide in the back of his car in his garage. So, with a shotgun. But his wife had only heard the loud bang and didn't know what it was. So called the police thinking there's an explosion in the shed or the garage. So we turned up and obviously I found him in the back seat. He was well and truly deceased. And of course, my next step is to go out and tell the wife that what's happened to the husband. So usually with those situations of delivering death messages, you get a bit of, you get notified by the phone or on the radio and you have time to prepare for it. But there's nothing worse than having zero time to prepare for telling someone their husband of 40 years, I think at that stage, has just decided to kill himself. So that was after a day's work. So that was the end of the day. So that was our last job for the day.
So you're 21-year-old and you go to a scene like that and go through everything that's involved. And after that, you just go home. Yeah,
well, I mean, chances are you're rostered on the next day. So there's no time to think about it because you've got to turn up and work the police car the next day and who knows what the next day is.
So no talk to your partner, your police partner. Just rock on back to head office and grab your stuff. As you said, it was towards the end of the day. Grab your stuff and see you
Grab your
tomorrow.
stuff and head home. Yeah. Well, see, near the end of the week, they might have had some drinks down at the local bar, which we all went to, and as coppers, and we'd talk about it there. But it wasn't a debrief. But that's it. There wasn't any visits to psychologists or debrief on how it went. They just didn't have time.
Throughout the book, that's one of the themes. There is no debrief. It's just, batter up and we go again tomorrow. Grab your stuff and off you go. But the debrief sessions seem to be based all around alcohol and with other coppers and police people. There's never any mention about your, let's call them civilian mates. Everything was with other police. Was that a bit of a security blanket there you had with the police, or was that just how things were done back then?
Look, I think it's how things are done back then, but I think that's how things are still done to a certain degree. I mean, who can you talk about? Who out of all your friends can you tell about a guy that decided to eat his shotgun?
Yeah.
You can't go home and say, honey, look what I did today. We went into the shed and saw this guy in the back seat of his car. That's just not going to happen. So the only people that we could talk to back then was coppers, and that's what we kept it to.
So through your career, did you socialise with a lot of people outside the force? It was just predominantly people within the force?
Well, to start off early in the career, I had a combination of friends, those that were in the police force and out. But I would say now that most of my friends that aren't coppers are actually friends of my wife. My friends, close friends, are all coppers.
And that's the same for them?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. So the debrief sessions are basically around alcohol with your copper mates. It's makes it hard to when you come out of the force and you just on a weekend or when you're not working. Did you find it hard to relate to just normal society?
Oh, terribly hard. It's like I've done it twice now. I left Victoria Police after 20 years and joined the Feds, and now I've just stopped work with the Feds. And it's like losing an arm. It's like having a major joint amputated. You have to get used to social life, and pretty much. I mean, I'm at the point now where I don't really have that much of a social life anymore, apart from maybe meeting one of my copper mates that might contact me or go down and have a coffee, and that's the limit to my social outings, I suppose. But there's a huge separation because you're identified as a copper. I mean, yes, that's what your job is, but people that identify you as that's Cameron, he's the copper. So losing that's like losing part of it.
Was that a burden to carry?
No, I don't think it was a burden. Sometimes it used to annoy the living Christ out of me. You go to a party and all your mates get introduced, but you're the one that gets singled out as the copper. They don't introduce the mate next to you as being the bank manager or the guy next to him as being the mechanic. It's always, and this is Cameron, who's the copper. It's difficult. I'd say it's almost like being in the army and finally getting out and adjusting to civilian life. Yeah. It's not easy. Sometimes it never happens. It's quite hard. I find it hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now the air wing, what was it that got you so excited to join the police air wing? That was a real dream of yours, and once you got there, you were ecstatic.
Oh, so over a million. Look, I put it in the book actually. I remember when I was a young kid playing war games in the front yard of the house in Adelaide with my younger brother. And back then it was the early 70s, and the Air Force actually had the helicopters. So they had the Iroquois. And one flew right over the top, did a half circle, and the guy sitting in the back with the big door open waved at me. Or I think he waved at me. It could have been his girlfriend around the corner, but I swear he waved at me. And I thought I was hitting a bit. And I thought, I'm going to do that one day. And then The Air Force got rid of their helicopters and going to the Army. I said, well, I don't want to be in the Army. I want to be in the Air Force like my dad. So it sort of faded away for a while. And then years later, I joined the police force, and here they've got a helicopter.
And so how old were you there again?
Sorry?
How old were you when you joined the Air Wing?
25 maybe.
Wow.
Still young.
Mate, you would have been, what, 80 kilos? I saw a photo of you in the book when you were 19. Mate, you were 73 kilos wringing wet.
Well, I'll tell you exactly what I was, 66.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I discovered beer.
That's because you had all those debrief sessions.
I know. That's pretty much it too. Because coppers drink like fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to read a section of the book here that I made so many notes in this book. The next person that reads it's going to drive them nuts. About the way you debriefed. And I felt this was really important. This was a real theme throughout the whole book. You just come back from one of the horrific incidents, and this is what you wrote. I never gave the incident a second thought, like the others that I had attended before it. I put it behind me the second I walked out the hangar door. Even if I needed to process it, the night's events, I didn't have any time. I was rostered on the air ambulance in 8 hours. So I just went home to bed.
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, the comment, if I needed to process it, but I never thought I did.
Yep.
So I treated all the traumatic jobs the same way. They were just a job to me. Mind you, that's not the way to do it, but it's the way I did it, hence why I got diagnosed with PTSD 20 years later. But again, you don't have the time. I mean, if you're finishing work at 11 p.m. And you get back from a car accident or a fatal car accident, you've got to clean the helicopter, drive home, get yourself to bed, and then up in time to start back on the air ambulance at 7 a.m. So there's no time to debrief. And if you thought about it too much, you wouldn't sleep at all. So therefore, you're useless the next day. So it had to be this process of forgetting about it the second you walked out the door. You couldn't think about it over and over. It just wouldn't work. You couldn't do the job.
Did that become a trained defence mechanism of yours?
Not necessarily mine. I think every police air observer that worked there did it. Those that kept working there certainly do it. And up until recently, when I think the ambulance contract's gone from there now, but up until about 2017, I'd say every police air observer on that air ambulance would have done exactly the same thing. I can't see how someone could work at that job for so many years without doing it.
What would have happened, Cam, if you had to come back one night and said, fuck, that was hard, and started talking about it and broke down in front of some of your colleagues, what would have happened?
Oh, what dare say, you get grounded?
Really?
Yeah, well, if you can't handle the ambulance, they can't let you work on it.
Same with the police air wing?
Same as the police, yeah, police helicopter, yep. And that's, that's sort of like what do? Do you give them, I mean, what they should do is say, look, we're going to have to keep you on the ground to let you get some help for a while, and we'll replace you in the air ambulance, and when you're better, you can come back. But they don't have the manpower to do that. They couldn't do that, not with the manpower they've got. There's 22 air observers, and the helicopter, the air ambulance is working 24 hours a day, and the police helicopters are working 18 hours a day.
So everyone knew that they were short on staff and that you weren't to show any weakness because you would get the arse.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
So that pressure alone, not being able to open up to anyone, and there's quite a few stages in the book there. The one where you went to Sorrento and retrieved those two bodies in Sorrento.
Yep.
Called the general police, dropped the bodies with them, and on your way back, you got a call to go to San Remo. Sorry, the other way around. You were in San Remo, then you went to Sorrento.
No, that's the right way around. Yeah. To do
and
another
just
one.
got no time. Just off we go again, and you're on the way home, you get another call and get diverted to go somewhere else.
Yeah. And when we finished Sorrento, we were flying over the bay, we could have got called to another one.
Yeah. Mate, unbelievable. I suppose the big story that goes through the whole book intermittently is the one where you were in Bass Strait. You called to Bass Strait and went out there and had a little fuel and tried to rescue Ron Palmer, who was on a round the world voyage on his boat, Ron's Endeavour.
Yep.
And it was in Bass Strait and capsized, gave a Mayday call out, and you went out there, and that's the one, isn't it? That's the one that later on in the book that you referred to that rocked your cage the most.
Yeah, it all went downhill from then.
Yeah.
It all went downhill very quickly too, mind you. It caused me to leave the police force, and I thought leaving Victoria Police after that, which was about 6 months later, I thought that was going to solve the issues that I thought I had. I certainly didn't know that I had PTSD, but I wasn't interested in flying anymore. Suddenly lost it. It had gone. In fact, I wasn't even interested in going to work. So the only way I could see that changing is to resign and then join the AFP. And that gave me a new lease, I suppose. But all it was really doing was to, push aside the PTSD for later.
So prior to then,
15 years later, then it went down.
So how long prior to then were you the winch man for how long prior to then, and an observer for how long prior to that incident?
13 years. 13 years.
So that's the one that rocked you the most because you nearly died? You nearly drowned?
Yeah. And there's this, and when you nearly drown, it's obviously fear takes over. And even though for me it was a split second, but I saw, because I've been doing that job for so long, I saw being scared as a personal failure. And I thought I'd let myself down and all my mates and all the observers before us. And that was a catalyst for not enjoying anything about work anymore. And I carried that fear and that, I suppose, ashamed of being a failure for years, until only recently.
Because there's a couple of quotes here that I wrote in the book. I feel like a failure. I wasn't brave. Work was a separate life, one devoid of any emotion or feeling.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was exactly like I've said. You never had the time for emotion. It had to be a job, do it, move on to the next job. So for me to be scared and having all that emotion, and including fear, which I thought I would never have, was just new for me.
But could you not cut yourself some slack? Like, mate, you're upside down in the middle of Bass Strait, not knowing which way's up, which way's down, which way's left or right, and you think you're going to drown because you get smashed by this wave on the way down. All the air is taken out of your lungs.
You sound like my therapist.
Slack, mate.
You sound like my therapist.
Oh, mate,
But it is, when you have PTSD, you don't focus on the positives, you focus on the negatives. Although I didn't know I had it, I certainly focused just on the negatives. So instead of saying, Cam, you did a great job, for me it was, Cam, you stuffed up, you did a bad job. And if you read the last line in the book, it puts it all in perspective.
Yeah.
But it took me a long time to realise that, the amount of good that you do. But for 35 years, all I could do was be disappointed with what I hadn't done.
Have you ever said, Cam, well done?
No.
Why?
Maybe one day. I don't know. It's a good question.
Mate,
maybe one day.
You saved so many people's lives. You did the right thing by everyone. Every day that you were an officer, you brought dead people's bodies back so that risked your life to bring their body back so their family had some closure. You won numerous awards.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't feel like you achieved anything, and you've got to be proud of yourself, mate.
Look, I know I've achieved a lot, and I know there's a lot of people out there that have lived a better life because of what I've done. But I'm not one to pat myself. I'm just not one to pat myself on the back, and that's the hardest thing for someone that doesn't want to pat themselves on the back to write a book. It's almost like it's just almost impossible. And the hardest thing, the biggest thing I tackle with is writing that book is making sure that I didn't pat myself on the back, because I don't like to, and I don't think I need to.
You don't, mate. Book does it for you.
It doesn't do it for me. I'm happy in the knowledge that there are people out there that live a better life, or living at all. I'm happy with that because of the work I've done. But I also acknowledge the people that didn't survive, and there's a heap of them. You know, and I think about them regularly. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think a pat on the back is, to me, is warranted.
So you have flashbacks of those people?
Look, it took me a while to work out what a flashback really is, but I have rumination. So my mind, internal monologue, goes over and over and over 24 hours a day, rehashing things. So that's my biggest problem, because then you never get a rest. So like that Bacchus Marsh accident that I talk about, you know, in the book, you know, I could be thinking about that all day for some reason. Then, of course, I don't get any sleep. And then the next day, you know, depression, and it all rolls on from there. So that's just one of the hurdles I've got to negotiate. So it's rumination for me rather than flashbacks.
So what do you do now when you feel those, when you feel yourself spiraling, you're having those flashbacks? What do you do now to control them?
It's about occupying your mind, which is also difficult, because when you have PTSD, you don't see enjoyment out of anything. So therefore you lack motivation. But, you know, you can get through that bit by bit. You know, whether it's reading a book, is a good one, actually. Watching some television, just in short stints. Yep. Going for a walk or walking the dog, although walking and running and exercise like that doesn't occupy the brain. So therefore you can actually run 10 kilometres and your brain's still ticking over 1,000,000 miles an hour. So you've got to occupy this, keep it busy.
That's hard too, because you said to me the other day you also suffer from hypervigilance, which you explained to me. And that was pretty obvious, you know, when I was walking up and down the aisles of Coles with you.
Head's going like that?
Yeah. That's got to be hard to deal with as well, mate.
I'm used to it, actually, because I do it so naturally without even thinking about it. What it does do is it's exhausting. It really tires you out. Hence why after lunch I'm usually having a nap or a lie down. But that doesn't stop. The only place it stops is in the house, my own house.
Yeah.
But if I'm out, I'm always looking at something moves behind me, I've got to look at it.
Yeah. And moving forward, mate, what do you want to do? What do you want to get out of these interviews where you have such an impact on people? What do you want to do? What do you see for you, mate? What do you want to get out of things like this?
Look, I'll be happy if people realise that there's light at the end of the tunnel. And it might, especially with PTSD, I mean, you're never going to get over a PTSD at all. You can work out how to live and work around all the symptoms. So I'd be happy if people realise that life will get back on track. You may not be able to do the job or whatever you used to do before you got diagnosed, but you will do something. And there's another thing that's important that a psychologist said to me not long after I got diagnosed. He was a friend of mine, and he said, "Cameron, it might be the best, worst day of your life." And I had no idea what he was talking about. Absolutely no idea until my book got published. And someone says, "That's incredible. You just wrote a book. It's got to be a great day." I said, "It's a pretty good day, isn't it?" Someone says, "Yeah, probably the best day of your life." And that's what he's talking about, this post-traumatic growth, they call it. So PTSD, I see as, you know, it's closing one door, opening another, really.
That's an amazing attitude to have, mate, after everything you've been through. That's incredible. Mate, we've got a question here from Chris. I'd be interested to know if Cam is comfortable with himself and where he is in life in general. We sort of covered that a little bit then, but
Very comfortable.
good.
A little way to go. There's plenty more to do for me to get through it. But life in general is pretty good. It's improving all the time. 12 months ago there was issues. I had that sort of issue about feeling of guilt and stuff like that, but now I'm over that. And there's a couple more things I have to sort of work on, which I'll be working on the next couple of years. And once they're over, I'll be back, I think. So now I'm just looking at what I'm going to do work-wise, or whether I write another book. I don't know yet, but yeah. So yeah, Chris, I'm back on track.
Mate, that's great to hear. And I'm sure everyone that's watching would be really, really pleased to hear that. Mate, we've got another one here that says, with stresses existing in many, many jobs and accumulating in very extreme levels for emergency services and police officers, what are the key things employers can do to assist and recognise accepting and alleviating those stresses for team members? What do you think?
Look, I answered this to Neil Mitchell one day. I'll talk in relation to the police force because I don't know about other people, but I think the ambulance service have a good peer support network. I think the police forces are lacking.
Yeah.
If we bring up the Chief Commissioner now and say how many fatal car accidents are there, and he will give you a figure of 270 this year, let's say. Then we say, how many of your members and who are they actually went there? You won't know.
Yeah.
Got no idea. So we work on this system with giving people support during trauma is everyone works in this model where the psychologists are there, and if the person needs support, they will ring the psychologist and get support. But I believe that the workplace should be monitoring what their people do, and the psychologist should knock on their door and say, hey, you've just done a fatal accident. Can I have a word to you?
Yeah.
I can't see how it works when the onus on diagnosis and whether someone needs support has to come from the person that's crook. Can't work it out. And these psychologists are probably sitting in a building wondering why no one's calling them. I had 35 years where I didn't think I was crook. Nothing wrong with me. So I never called a psychologist. But I bet you if they monitored what I did during my career, the psychologists would be absolutely falling off their chairs, thinking, why haven't we spoken to this person?
If you were monitored a lot better, in other words, is what you're saying, is that the red flags would come up very frequently, and then you'd be able to be looked after in a much better manner if you were monitored.
Yeah, well, I would suggest that if a psychologist saw a few red flags in my career and they come and saw me and saying, look, you've got to have a debrief. It's mandatory.
Yeah.
You have to have it. I would have gone.
Would that have taken the stress, knowing that, and all the boys are around having a coffee in the hangar, and you'd gone to see someone, you'd come back, then they would intrinsically ask how you went, and it would be a much better environment for all the guys and girls to work in, surely.
Well, it only has to be mandatory and part of the way you do business. If these things are mandatory and you have to go and sit down in your workplace with a psychologist and talk for half an hour, and you have to have 3 sessions, then so be it.
Yeah.
I can't see any problem with backlash from other members. I don't think they're going to have a problem because the next day they could be doing it themselves.
Exactly.
Which they're not the ones monitoring it. Someone else is doing it.
Which make the workplace a lot happier place to be, I would imagine, knowing you've got that safety net.
Well, exactly right. And you've got the psychologist there.
Yeah.
What are they doing?
Now, mate, my little sister is watching, and I've told her about the book, and she was really proud of me that I actually read a book cover to cover. And that's why you have to write another one, because my wife is also loving me at the moment.
She wants you to read another one.
She wants you to write another one for me.
Yeah.
Luana's written here, thank you so much for your honesty and openness. I can't wait to get the book on Sunday for Mother's Day. Not happy I have to wait till then to read it. So, mate, she's been listening to me over the last couple of days, and she's pretty keen. So, and she's going to get her husband to read it as well. And I've told a lot of people about your book, mate. And I've told a lot of people about you over the last 6 days. I think I spoke to you last Wednesday, mate. The other thing is your amazing wife, Susan. What a lady! Incredible.
Yeah, she's put up with a lot. So are my kids.
How are the kids now?
Look, they're a lot better. I was given a book about 3 years ago that was a kid's book about PTSD, and we sat on the bed with the two kids and I read it to them. And I couldn't believe some of the things they said when they talked about, oh, Dad, this is you. You do this. And I've just thought, oh, Christ, they know everything. But that was great. And now they know about the noise levels down. They know that I can't join them on some outings. And they're fine with that now. They're actually a lot more affectionate now. They understand what's going on, believe it or not. And the good thing is my son is he started reading the book.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so he had a English assignment today. I had to write down his favourite book. And he wrote down 10 feet tall and not quite bulletproof.
Mate, that's a proud moment.
Yeah. So I said, you little bugger, you better finish it.
He's got 6 days to beat me.
Yeah.
Mate, this is an absolute cracker. It is. Mate, to say I was emotional when I read this book would be an understatement. On behalf of myself, everyone at 100 Words, and the community at large, mate, what you did for so many people was nothing short of...
You might cry in a minute.
Brilliant, mate. Nothing short of brilliant. You're a hero, mate. You're an absolute hero.
Well, thanks, mate.
You really are.
I'm not the only one. There's a heap of them out there.
I know, mate. I know. But to have the courage like you have to talk about it and openly, as you have done, is incredible, mate. And the more people that read it will put a lot of things in perspective, and I'm sure will create a greater appreciation for what police do. And, mate, a helicopter flew over today at Safety Beach, and I just stood and I went like this.
Well, if it's flying over here, they're saying hello to me.
Mate, thank you so much for your open honesty. Mate, we could go, I said to you the other day, we could make this a 7-part miniseries. I could speak to you every second Tuesday. Mate, I'd love to have you on again. If you'd love to spend some time with us. And as I said, mate, on behalf of myself and all the boys at 100 Words, we cannot say thanks enough. And just a quick one, Dougie, your mate and my mate's just written here, mate. Well done, mate. Thanks for sharing, Cam. You're a great man.
Oh, thanks.
Mate, tell you what, I wish I could come and give you a hug. Next time I see you, probably
the second person that said that in the last 2 days.
Well, mate, when COVID's over, it's my shout for dinner, and we're going to have a cheeky red and a steak and talk about it.
Yes, now you're talking. All right. I'm just going to answer some of these questions.
Mate, I'd love to have you on again. You've been an absolute star, and I really, really appreciate your time, Cam. You're a hero.
Thanks, buddy.
No worries. Thank you. Now, I'm going to gather myself here. Next week, we've got Lawrence Hayden, the psychologist from the 1982 America's Cup team for Australia. He will be on next week. Got his back fixed during the week, and he will be on with us. Now, as we do every week, a huge thanks to the following people. Shelley Wood from Splice Communications. Shelley, I love you. You're a star. I love everything you do for us every week. You're amazing. Thank you. To 61 Finance and Atlas Equipment Finance. Matt, thank you so much for your support and everything you do for 100 Words Mate to Mate. And my dear friend Brett Phillips, who runs a nationwide tennis show called The First Serve. Thank you for everything you do for us as well. On behalf of myself, my amazing makeup artist and producer, Matt Bolton, who's also a board member of 100 Words. Have a great week. Hope it's a 10 out of 10. Thanks.